So I just got done watching the main event of UFC Macau, Song Yadong versus Division Figueiredo, a fight in which Song Yadong ended up pulling out an impressive second round submission victory against a very high level jiu-jitsu practitioner. Very, very impressive victory. Now, the fight itself was interesting because in round one, it was more or less both these guys feeling each other out, more or less of nothing. But Song did do a couple of effective things in round one. He did a good job of pressuring effectively in certain moments. He did a good job at putting punches together in combination in certain moments. And essentially, Song Yadong set that standard or set that precedent going into round two. And going into round two, Song kind of built off of a lot of the things that he did in round one. In round two, Song Yadong did a good job at putting punches together in combination once again, but also adding a high kick at the very end of it until eventually Division Figueiredo actually had success finding a takedown of his own. But on that takedown, Song Yadong quickly found a guillotine attempt and found the submission very quickly. Davison Figueiredo tapped very quickly on that, which kind of shows you the level of squeeze that Song Yadong has. Very impressive to submit a guy that quickly in general, but especially to submit a guy that quickly whose name is Davison Figueiredo. And obviously, he's been one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UFC for quite some time. So great win, I thought, for Song Yadong. Now, the question that some people wonder after a win like that is, do I think Song Yadong is at the elite level at this point? Do I think he can compete for the belt at this point? Do I think he's a top three guy at this point? In my opinion, unfortunately, I still think the answer to this question is no. This is a good win against Davison Figueiredo. I thought he did a lot of good things. I even thought Song Yadong looked improved in this fight. But with that being said, we have to understand where Davison Figueiredo is at this point in his career. He's still really good, honestly, or at least pretty good, but he's older. He's obviously older at this point. He has all the skills. He has the striking. He has the jiu-jitsu. He has the knowledge. But he's just a step slow in certain situations, for one. For two, he just seems a lot more hesitant than he used to be in the past. It's just not the same Davison Figueiredo that we've seen in the past, let's say 4 years or 3 years. It's just a completely different guy. So we have to understand that aspect of it. But with that being said, obviously, as I said before, it's a step in the right direction. Song Yadong is coming off a loss in his most recent fight to Sean O'Malley. He needed to get back into the win column here. He was a big favorite, and he looked like a big favorite, I thought, in this fight versus Davison Figueiredo. So step in the right direction. But with that being said, the main reason for why I personally don't think Song Yadong is at the elite level yet, until proven otherwise at least, is every single time that Song Yadong has went up against elite competition, whether you talk about his fight versus Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley, or even Corey Sandhagen, he's always come up short. And it's not that he's getting blown out of the water. He's not. He's competitive in those fights, especially early. But as the fight progresses, it seems like his opponents just start to figure him out. And as I said, in all three of those fights that I just mentioned, all those fighters figured him out as the fight progressed, especially in his most recent performance versus Sean O'Malley. And I think that's an issue for Song Yadong. He's not necessarily gassing out that badly, maybe a little bit, but not that badly. But it just seems like there's something missing to his game, to the reason for why the elite fighters are figuring him out. So step in the right direction for sure, but I would like to see Song Yadong fight somebody elite next and see how he performs in that fight. If we see a very similar thing once again, I think it's fair to assume that Song Yadong is probably never going to become a champion. I know he's young. I know people will say he has a ton of time to improve, which he does. There's no question about that. But I think at a certain point, if you're constantly running into the same issues against the elite fighters, doing well early, but kind of falling off late, it's a common trend, and it's not something that I personally like seeing. And I just think you're probably not going to become a champion if that were to be the case. So anything could change. Maybe maybe Song Yadong at this point is well improved. Maybe he will actually have success and maybe beat some of the elite guys. But at this point, until proven otherwise, I just don't see him as a legitimate champion contender or a legitimate top three guy. Now, as for who's next for Song Yadong, it is interesting. There are a couple of options you can go with. I think the issue with Song Yadong at this point is a lot of the guys at the top half of the weight class are taken. Umar Nurmagomedov technically does not have a fight booked yet, but there's a lot of rumors that he's going to fight some other guys. So we'll see. Maybe this win that Song Yadong had changes some of that. Maybe you have Song Yadong versus Umar Nurmagomedov for UFC 330. That's a possibility. I would like to see Song fight up in the rankings at this point. He is number 5 currently. So that's definitely a possibility. Or if not, he may have to wait. A lot of these guys, as I said, are fighting. Sean O'Malley, he just fought. He's not going to fight him anyway. But also on top of that, Sean is fighting on the White House card. and there's just not too many options. But I would say Umar could be a good potential option for Song Yadong next. Now, outside of the main event itself, I did quickly want to touch upon the fight between Taliesin Teixeira and Sergey Pavlovich, as Sergey Pavlovich ended up finding a 40-second knockout victory. Very impressive for Sergey, but at the same time, I just don't think Taliesin Teixeira is who I thought he was coming into the UFC. I thought he could be decent. I didn't think his, technical ability was all that great, but I thought because he was big, somewhat athletic, and very powerful, at least it seemed, I thought he would be enough, or I thought that would be enough to have success in the weight class. But honestly, it's proven that it's not the case. In his 2 fights in the UFC, at least up against higher level sort of fighters like Sergey Pavlovich and Derek Lewis, this guy has got knocked out in sub 1 minute both times. Not great to say the least. I just don't think his chin is that great, honestly, for one, but also for two. He just doesn't have the defensive ability, doesn't have the technical ability. It just seems like he's not that great of a fighter, to be completely honest. So that's kind of what happened in that fight. Throughout the entirety of the fight itself, there were some interesting fights. Zhang Mingyang lost once again. I could have seen that coming. And the card itself looked pretty decent. It was very early in the morning. I wasn't able to catch all of it, but I caught some of it, and obviously I caught the main event. So that were kind of my thoughts or my recap on the main event of UFC Macau, Song Yadong versus Division Figueiredo. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you guys like the fight? Do you think Song's an elite fighter? Do you not think so? What do you guys think? But until the next time, peace out, boys.